Okay, I guess we're going. I hope we're going. I've got This is what we get when we change things and go away. So we did stream on Tuesday, but Derek is the help for that. He is so much better about it than I am. But yeah, we ended up being gone longer than we expected. Now, I wasn't planning on coming back to doing this till today, but it's just crazy. I gotta turn this down because I'm going to be listening to this. Because I want to see the chat. I mean, that's the biggest headache, is doing two different things. So I've got the chat going over here. Audio is very out of sync. Huh, wonder why. We'll find out. Let's see if it'll catch up. All right, there we go. I hope you guys can see it. Oh, hey, some people that have not seen our chat before. That's great. Let me pause this. But yeah, we were in Dallas last week. We returned last Friday, so it's been a week since we got home. But we were supposed to return a week ago Tuesday. Audio seems okay. Video is choppy as well. Goodness gracious. Well, I do see like some stuff going on with that. Now, I don't know why that would be a problem. We have tons of great, I can stop the stream and start it again, I guess. Let me check here a couple of things before I do that. But yeah, I should have been prepared, but we got iced in. We were supposed to leave on Tuesday. Scott was like, good luck on that. And he was correct. I mean, we were visiting Scott, so let me see here. I don't know. Is it any better? Technology is fun, Gator Dave. I have no idea. And thanks, Bloody. I'm happy to be back. I'm really excited to paint. I realize I really have to paint because the Marvel United campaign closed yesterday, and it was not a good deal. Well, I keep seeing let's see what we got here. I don't really know what I'm doing when I look at this stuff, to be honest with you. I don't really want to stop the streams. I guess I wonder how YouTube's doing. Is anybody there? Audio and video's fine for Sheila. Okay, so maybe it's Twitch. Let me try stopping Twitch and starting Twitch. Let me see if that works. Okay, well, let's see what that does. I didn't know we could do that, which is pretty awesome, but I see we're going red to yellow, and I think red is the good, which is the opposite of what I would think, and yellow's not as good. Okay, well, I'm glad that YouTube's doing okay. I wonder what's up with Twitch. I know that, I gotta go back on this chat now. Nothing fun. Sorry about all that. Hopefully it's better. If not, maybe go to YouTube. Seems like YouTube's better. Anyway, yeah, we got stuck, but it was fun. I had a good time. We were there partly for Scott's birthday, and we had some BGG stuff to do, and we had a great time. And it was actually fun. I mean, I'd never been snowed in, which is what it was for us. And let's see. Audio's back in sync. Video's still choppy. Shucks. I don't know what the deal is. I see I don't quite understand how all this works. We have tons of bandwidth, but it somehow could be the machine. I do have a couple things running on that end, and we'll have to see. Hopefully it'll catch up. I need a drink, but yeah, we're trying to change some technology in the studio, and we're filming this weekend. It's our last chance to film with Deborah for a couple months. Not going to be on a TV show or movie, but we are hoping and wanting to do a couple things with her. So we really want to be as smooth as possible, and it's been crazy because we just so much stuff. Anytime you try to change anything, you run into a lot of problems, and the changes we're making are technologically kind of a hurdle, I imagine. We'll see how it goes. We thought people had been asking snow and in Ohio and North Carolina. Interesting. I remember my Dallas ice storm from about 11 years ago. Well, there was supposed to be an ice storm one year when we were at BGG Con in November, and it spooked everybody. Lots of people left, and left early. And then, of course, nothing happened. Now, we generally stay there at least another day or so after the con to, hang out with Scott and not be as stressed. That was what was really great about going to visit him this last week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, because we didn't have a convention we had to worry about. YouTube was better. Supposedly, yes. I don't know if it truly is. San Antonio. Well, I hope you can come to BGCon. Supposedly, it's good on that side. So I don't know. I'm going to try to keep track of. I don't know what I can possibly do to. The funny thing is, they are. Hey, thanks for the follow, Tomcat 1974. They're both like flickering the same amount. Now, Derek's not. He's had a doctor's appointment today, so he's like, I don't think I'll be able to help you on Thursday. And he generally, I try not to bother him with this stuff, especially after we edit an episode. He rushed out. He had picked the wrong. I gave him a bunch of stuff to edit, and he picked the wrong 2 to actually get done. So he was getting the Mists of Carcassonne out, which we were excited. We shot that at the beginning of December, I believe, and we had been wanting to put it out. When we film with Deborah, we don't just try to get them all out the door because she can't come that often. She, with her baby and her toddler and everything, they're just busy. And she's been busy. She was in. I've meant to tell people about it, but she was in Quantum Leap. And I'm so happy she posted it on Twitter because I would not have known. I'm not a TV person, but I'm really glad I got to see it. It's actually the first television show I have seen Deborah in. I had never watched Daredevil, and I barely, maybe a moment of watching Not As Bad As Twitch. A little bit more smooth. I don't know. I don't wonder what the heck's going on here. We should be able to do this. We have tons of bandwidth. We'll have to do some looking. As Tim Size says, the YouTube streaming quality is excellent. So there you go. I don't know. Anyway, we had on Tuesday we had who was it that was in there? Kabuki Kid was on both, going back and forth. So we may have to stop doing. I mean, here's the thing: we have lots of people that have never seen us. They don't watch Twitch, and they are seeing us on YouTube, and it's a treat. And something we would like to try to do more of because, we do this all the time and we don't make money really from it, but it's a good thing to have available so people can see it and interact with us and maybe see what they're doing and everything. And that's what's exciting about the paint streams. But yeah, the Kickstarter for Marvel United ended and they got nearly $4.8 million on it. And I'm certain there's got to be another 100 minis. I went all in on it, even though I had pretty much said I didn't want to do that previously. But I caved. I mean, I know I'm going to cave. And if they do it again, I will cave again because I really do love the minis. I just don't know. I'm trying not to buy minis. I bought a few things from... so I have Adepta Astartes. No, Adepta Sororitas. I was very excited. I was a longtime Sisters of Battle fan, and they had done a bunch of upgrades. And so I buy a couple things for that line of, I have tons of Eldari, tons of Drukhari, which are the Dark Eldari. All the names changed, so I'm having a hard time remembering all. They didn't change orcs, though. Or are they orcs? They might be orcs now. Maybe that's the fantasy ones. Hey, thanks for the... Hey, Michael's here. I gotta... thanks, Michael. He is busy. He got a new job, Michael, and can't watch us on Tuesdays, which is sad because he is super helpful. But we... I don't even remember where I was at. So I was talking about Marvel United, back in that. And tons of stuff. So I did order some stuff from Miniature Market, a piece of terrain or some terrain and I need it, and some and those kind of like mech-ish Adepta Sororitas, but or Sororitas, I guess. Who knows? But I mean, I love that stuff. I just can't paint it on all the time. Why were we not on YouTube from the beginning? Because supposedly Twitch is the place to be, Matthew Rose. You know, streaming is very the community is a little bit better as far as interaction from the users, and I always questioned why we did it, because, you know, our audience has always been on YouTube, and we've been building that for 10 years. Michael, oh yeah, on the new job. Marvel 3 United, yes, it's great. So much good stuff. I can't believe Doctor Strange themed expansion. That would be good. I hope they don't do a season 4, I gotta tell you. But if they do a Doctor Strange thing, I'll be in. Anyway, so I love the Warhammer stuff and the Citadel Games Workshop stuff. I just can't buy it all. I just have, next to me has got to be 1,000 minis, I would imagine. And there's so much stuff. Now, some of these things have started and I've finished. I did lots of Eldar when I was first into that. I just can't, you know, and I was totally into Warhammer Underworlds because I love it. You can have like 5 or 6, you know, up to 3 to 6 or 3 to 5 minis and there's some with a few more. And that's it. You don't have to build a full army. But yeah, the Twitch and the YouTube thing, I hope that, I mean, we're going to continue to try to do this because it's just great. Lots of people every time we stream, so many people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you guys are streaming. And they're so happy to have an opportunity to see us. And Twitch does do some nice stuff. One of the best things that Twitch does, which we don't have on YouTube, and I'm surprised they haven't tried to add it, is rating, where you go from one channel to another. That is one of the best things because it just gives some, you know, you move on to the next group of folks that are streaming, and if people are into it, they can go along. And I wish that YouTube would do something similar. We have no idea when others are streaming. I mean, easily. Twitch has tools. I'm supposed to have that here. Twitch has tools that make it very simple to do. And I need to make sure I'm seeing that for when I do it. Oh my gosh. So much stuff though, tech. I swear, Twitch is logging me out of stuff and it's just crazy. And you know, we have to do authentication for all that stuff. So it just makes it a lot more difficult. We made some changes over, when I was in Dallas, so hopefully that's all better. But yeah, I mean, YouTube's great. They've been, you know, for the most part, YouTube, all of them don't really focus on our kind of material, you know, our content, and that's fine. I mean, it's not the most, you know, we are welcoming of everybody, but it's not the most widespread hobby. And we're trying to make it better. That's one reason why we didn't, it says lucky numbers. You know, that's why we started doing Game Night. You know, we started it, Scott always thought we were a good group and had fun when he played with all of us. And we didn't, you know, so at first we were reluctant. It was like, who's going to want to watch? And I mean, still, who's going to want to watch? It's not a ton. I actually went through analytics yesterday, or day before yesterday, actually for a few days before that, looking at stuff for Gamegenic. That is part of what we're supposed to do, is report how we're doing on analytics, and it's a little disheartening. I mean, we still have a growing audience and more people subscribe all the time, and new people watching. I can see them, the people that are gregarious enough to comment, I see them continue to post on more and more videos going back, just like Deborah, how she found us. She saw one episode and thought we were, thank goodness, whatever it was. I know what it was, but I don't recall it, how fun it was. But she had a great time, and so she started watching us, and that's how she found us. And that's how a lot of people, Matt Milder, who's a big-time fan of the show, and is on Twitch with us all the time, he found us, and it's great. He loved, you know, it's just really cool that people, you know, because I saw him commenting. He was a little grumpy, although Matt might always be a little grumpy, but he was a little grumpy initially. And all it takes is one episode. Yeah, I hope that's true. But, and then, you know, he got to enjoy it. And you know, I don't, people can be grumpy. I feel you know, you be honest with them and, you know, and appreciate that they've actually even took a chance to watch. And more often than not, they continue to watch, and it's wonderful. But it's just not, it's not gangbusters, and I want to do well for Gamegenic. We actually had a problem with last week's episode where there was, so they have audio in songs in their ads, and we have a thing where we put in a number that is supposed to authenticate that we're allowed to use that music. And it did not work last week. I did everything the way I always do it, and usually you'll get a notification that you have a copyright claim, and then it'll go away. Well, it never went away, and so now we have ads in last week's episode of Flamecraft, and we shouldn't. I mean, we turned the ads off, but because the copyright holder did not clear it for us, they now, I guess we have to have ads for them to get paid, and that's frustrating. So it's always a big challenge. There's a lot of little layers of stuff that we have to deal with, and it's not simple. I don't want to take that episode down. We've got, you know, quite a few views for us because it went up on Sunday. I couldn't put it up last Thursday because I was still in Dallas. Everything was not finished when we left, and so Derek finished it up. And then when I thought I was going to be back on Tuesday, and I would prepare the episode and put it up on Thursday, but we did not get back till Friday evening. And then I had just the craziest troubles with my computer on Saturday. And I got as far as I could, but it was not great. And it seems to be better right now. But so I just stayed. I was up pretty late that night, you know, working on it throughout the day, and I had to like walk away because I was so frustrated. And so I ended up getting it done late. And I could have filed something up, but I do not believe I did. And it's frustrating that did not work out. Anyway. Always here, learning and improving. It's true. I mean, they didn't strike us, Gator Dave. They just it's a claim, and there's no problem. They just, I think anything that's made from it, they get. Now, we turn off the ads. I know people don't all love the Gamegenic ads, but we're very happy about them because they're very simple. They only happen 3 times in the video, once at the beginning and twice, once before we start playing the game and once before we start the discussion. And that's lightweight, in my opinion. And I like the ads. I wish they'd make more ads, but I like the ads because I like their products a lot. So, and they're great. You know, I hope they're happy with this. They seem to be, and we really want to do well by them because it's very difficult for a show like ours to get sponsorship. We promote games, and we can't have a publisher that wants us to do specific games. And that was part of the deal when we talked with Gamegenic, since they're part of Asmodee. They're like, I go, hey, we just pick what we want. The shows don't always get a lot of views because it's not a game that's everybody's excited about. We're hoping that people get excited about it because we play them, but you know, they don't. That's nice that you let them play, Michael. I mean, you can jump ahead. They're about 30 seconds, and there's no restrictions on jumping. The downer is that folks that are YouTube Red or whatever, the premium. I guess Red was the old thing. Now it's premium. They pay to not have ads, and we can't take them out. And it's I wish there was a better way to do that. But the thing is it's a small price to pay for a show that we've never charged for. All we ever ask is that if you like what we're doing, please consider supporting us on Board Game Geek at boardgamegeek.com/support. We do run our big support drive at the end of the year. We just ended one in January, and I think we came close to our goal. So our goal is generally about what we did last year, maybe a little bit more. We did not get there. Now, I think part of the reason for that is, I mean, obviously financial things are a little different. And number 2, everybody's not, everybody's watching because what else could you do during the pandemic especially? I mean, that's why so many people started painting all their minis. I started working on them once again. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I love Marvel United. It's such a great game. Yeah, I agree with you. Another acid reflux ad. I see even worse than that. And then sometimes there'll be like an ad that's 25 minutes long. I'm like, what is this? Now, I can usually skip it, but I'm one of those people that just puts it on and lets it go. I don't really worry about it. And I don't pay for premium. Maybe I should, but I already pay for so many services I just can't imagine. And it does pay us a little better. That's one of the reasons people are like, I do that so it helps the creators, and it does help us a little better. It's not the same as what, obviously, as what Google is getting from the ads that that are in our put in our videos. I don't mind them necessarily up front. If I could, I just don't. I feel with Gamegenic, we want them to get their money's worth, and I feel you should get undivided attention on their ads, and their ads are for good products that are gaming related 100%. we're thinking about doing another Marvel Champions. I got it out behind me. I bought all of the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, and maybe do that, or maybe them versus Thanos or something. I mean, I'm excited to try some of these other things. But yeah, it's a you know, you want it to be more successful. Scott puts a lot of effort into us. You know, I try to be as low impact as possible, because it's, you know, this could be very expensive. Everybody basically donates their time except for me, because I'm full-time with BGG and doing a lot of other things. So I'm still trying to do all that stuff on top of doing game night, which is what I've always done. Thankfully, we have Derek now, makes life a little easier. Gator Dave, I love their stuff. I love their matte sleeves. I think their matte sleeves are phenomenal, especially for the smush shuffle, or the mash shuffling. I love them. I think they're really great. Matte sleeves are the best. And then I love their art sleeves that they do for the Marvel United. I wish that they would do one half of them matte and then the backside glossy for the art, but it's okay. But I think they're great, and I love their deck boxes, and I love all of that stuff. We will probably try to use one of the ones that I love the ad for is the games layer. We'll probably try to use that for Marvel United, because I'm actually trying to move my stuff into 2 of those boxes. We'll see if that works out. I want them to do, we have a meeting with them, and I want them to try to do more things that are game related and less, I mean, you know, their token silos are the best things ever. And, you know, those are the trays that have the little modular bowls that you can pull out. I'm showing this underneath where you can't see it. I got to get like Eric. And I love them because you store everything together and you pull the stuff out. We actually have a couple of them left in game boxes on games that we play. Tastefully done. Yeah, thank you so much, Naya. We hope it works out, because here's the deal. If it doesn't, we won't. I'm not saying we'll be done, but I would like us to get to where we could pay people stuff. You know what I mean? It's like we barely make anything on YouTube's dollars, you know, for ads. Christmas time, it always grows at Christmas time. And I don't believe it, but I heard that YouTube gives you a larger cut during the holidays. But I'm certain it's because we did the Advent calendar opening. I mean, to do something like that, if we could possibly do that, that would be amazing. I don't know what that could possibly be, because, you know, that's perfectly compartmentalized to like be a 15-minute episode, and we had a great time doing it. Everybody wanted to be involved more. I talked to Deborah about it. She said, I said to her, I think we're talking about doing it a little early, because you can get those Advent calendars and get started earlier before the end of the year, because we basically started them like a couple weeks before Christmas, before December, and we're trying to keep up on it, because it's actually kind of hard. But she was very excited because she wants to be more involved. So, and I really wanted Rusty to come. That was the real plan. It was going to be Deborah, Aaron, Dave, and Rusty. But Rusty could not. He just is so busy with his dad. And that was a real bummer. So Dave did a couple extra, you know, he did like 11 of them with us instead of just 5 or 6. But anyway, I'll get to painting now. Enough of that stuff. Those awesome Amish chairs. You know, I have not seen that, Jack. I haven't seen it for a little while, but I kept seeing this ad for Mud, which was some sort of coffee mess. And first of all, I'm not a coffee person. And secondly, I just thought it was a gross ad. It looked like Austin Powers. It was a little nutty. So yeah, I don't know. There's so much we could do, and we're trying. You know, it's a challenge. We don't feel good about trying to collect money. I mean, we may end up going to something like Patreon at some point in time, but I feel it's just better to support BGG as a whole, because, you know, I mean, BGG provides a lot. I mean, it has changed my life, because I found it almost 20 years ago. It was 21 years ago, almost 22 years ago now. No, 21 years, almost 21 years ago. I found it after we played Catan, and I love the site. It is super valuable. I don't dig deep in the non-game stuff. You know, I mean, like, I go into the comments and forums and stuff some, but I'm mostly just paying attention to like the stuff I'm interested in the games, and it's phenomenal. Like, you have direct interaction with plenty of designers and publishers because they follow that stuff. I mean, that has been Nikki's, whenever she's worked for a publisher, that has been part of her job, is to make sure that questions are answered as soon as you can. I mean, you can't do that easily, especially with smaller companies. So, I mean, if a company fails, the designer doesn't disappear, and they're often there responding. It's really great. So I feel like if you support BGG, you get a lot of bang for your buck. And if you appreciate what we do here on Game Night, even better. Yeah, it's the Patreon thing would be good. I mean, it's certainly a possibility. We would like. I mean, it's expensive to get around here in LA now. That is the biggest concern. That's why we don't try to ask too much of people to come over. It's, even Candace, who works with us now, she's not exactly close, and she's here often because we are filming things. We have our In Focus and How to Play videos that we do, and she's one of the production people on that. One of the personalities with the Brothers Murph. And I just can't have her come up here constantly, Oh, those Amish made. Okay, there you go. Yeah, those are great chairs. I'm sorry. I thought those were ads for Amish chairs. We bought those at a place here in the Valley. We got the table from Geek Chic, who don't exist anymore, and their chairs, which were very nice, were awfully expensive. And we were able to get the Amish chairs from a, what was it called? Barn Furniture Outlet or something like that here in the Valley. And they loaned us oak chairs for like 2 months while the walnut chairs were being made. And we love those chairs. I mean, for me, I'm entirely comfortable for 10 or 12 hours. And we've had to do that. But yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we would love to, it's always, and we do spend money to upgrade what we do. That is what we're doing right now. We're trying to figure out a way. People have been asking for us to go to 4K, and we're going to try to do it. It will be a challenge, I will tell you now, because our show is not 20 minutes long. It's not 15 minutes long. It's hour to 2 hours to 3 hours to 4 hours, and that is a lot of video recording. And I realized how much of a wall we're going to bump up against, because a 1 terabyte card in the camera that we're going to use for the down camera will only record probably 4 hours and 45 minutes, which is not a lot. We're probably, and those are expensive cards, so we're going to have to buy more of them. But we got one showing up tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. We're also going to try to shoot, as I said, we don't want to mess up filming on Sunday, so we're going to try to shoot our relaunch of Game Night Date Night this weekend. I was on Candace's podcast, the Board Game Geek podcast, and mentioned that we would be doing that, but we're still not quite ready. I mean, we lost about another week by being stuck in Dallas, even though it was only about, we were supposed to leave on Tuesday, left on Friday, but it really kind of messed up our week there for sure. Let's see. Okay, well, here we go. Let's see what we got. I'm glad Nikki's using that voice recognition. I notice her responses to me are so much faster. I'm terrible. I sometimes use it, but I like typing it, and I've been so frustrated with my phone lately. Let's cut to the down cam. I'm not really on that camera. Okay, here we go. So yeah, I left off. I had painted. So we did the Flamecraft ones. We played the game that came out last Sunday, and the minis turned out really wonderful. The technique is very fast. I don't think they're on YouTube. I mean, they're uploaded to YouTube, I believe, but I will put those live so people can see how I did that. I should try to do something where I airbrush the base coat, because I did it once. There's a gnat in here. I did it once on the Jurassic World Legacy of Isla Nublar video, where I painted it black and then dry brushed it the white zenithal highlight, and that was pretty cool. I think that that's a great way to get started if you don't want to get an airbrush. I'm talking about buying. I love Vincent Venturella. I've been watching him for years. I am so happy that he has started to get the attention he deserves. He had a small subscriber base that was really surprising to me because he's really super friendly, does not try to make money. I hope he's making money. I know he's doing the stuff with Adam. I did buy their latest miniatures game book, and I love his stuff. I mean, he reviews everything, and he is just wonderful. If you want to learn stuff, he's one of the best. I love Adam Smasher, Tabletop Minions. He's the one that got me going on the type of miniature painting I do, which is, lately I've been using, I mean, I've used Zenithal highlighting before, but I did not use Citadel's contrast paints. This is not contrast paint. Let me find one here. But I was excited about them. I bought, when I was visiting Scott for Gen Con in 2019, I bought like 8 bottles of paint or something, and then a can of primer, and I showed him how to paint. And this is literally, this miniature right here is the first miniature I painted in contrast paints. And I think the stuff is amazing. It looks really good. It's quick. It'll look very nice on the table. And, you know, I'm particular. I spend a little bit more time doing things, but you can do your level. Scott was doing what he was interested in doing on it, and he got a lot done. He's much faster than I am. But so then I had the Marvel United stuff. I was excited about it, but I was a little, I don't know if I actually had the full Marvel United set yet. I don't think I did. I think I had just the main box that came, maybe. And then, and so I got, we bought him a copy of the main game, and he did Hulk and something else, could be the Red Skull, and I've watched him do that on the stream. He was doing it for one of our not Game Night, Board Game Geek virtual cons in November of 2020, and I thought, you know what, that is the way to do this. And I have evolved. I don't think I can show you Hulk, but I have evolved. Let me see if I can find one of my early ones over here. And I've gotten better. You know, a friend of mine asked me if I was gonna, I don't think I have one of them here. He asked me if I was gonna repaint them. I'm like, I don't think it's necessary. I feel everybody's gonna be happy to play the game painted, you know what I mean? Here's the stuff I've done recently. This one was, you know, this one had its own charms. Because, I mean, you know, the comic colors, there's so many kind of pink and blue or purple stuff. I think the Galactus or whatever that's in the new one is those colors. But, I mean, I loved the Dalmatian spotting and stuff like that, and that was pretty easy. It's not one of the better, more recent ones, but I pushed my, you know, my limits a bit on how I do it. And then I did the Okoye, and she looks wonderful. And I love, I just love how simple this was. And she looks fantastic. My first one that I did with, I mean, this one was just, the detail is crazy, and it just looks so great. And somebody say, Horns fan is saying anything looks great on the table. I agree. That's the thing. I enjoy this. I'm having a lot of fun. I feel it's not that hard to get started. So I may buy, I was starting to say I might buy an airbrush that they have a kit for. Here was MODOK. There's a kit that you can get that's around $70 that it has a compressor in the handle. So you just recharge it. And I might get that and try to do it on one of the streams. I might have to mute myself, but I have like a spray booth behind me that I would probably bring over here so that I could do it. And then show you how easy it is. It's not hard to do the airbrushing. Hey, Jimbo Slinger TV, thanks so much for the follow. And so it's a simple thing. Now I've done a little bit, you can see I focused a little bit more brightness on, it's a little too dark I feel for the boots, but I wanted these plumes of, you know, I don't know what he uses for taking off here. And I want them to be brighter. So I thought, well, let me try that. That was, for example, this one here, I spent a lot of time trying to get him, because he's got this big white coat. And I'm not a real fan of what comes out of the like the Apothecary White for what this is. I definitely use this paint, but it's a gray. It's a blue gray. And it makes everything, I can absolutely show you something that I did that on. Here we go. Here's Storm. It looks okay. She's great. Her white eyes are kind of disturbing. It's a little dusty. But this is not great. It looks chalky and messy to me. So I put a little bit extra time in airbrushing his coat and his jacket, and then I didn't paint it. I painted it black, then I did the gray zenithal highlight, and then I did the white. And then I did come in a little bit on the folds and do a little bit of dark stuff to just make those a little bit more pronounced. And then I just varnished it. So that was it. I thought, well, this is a great white, I'm not going to mess with it. I wish I'd done that previously. And you know, pinstriping, I will give you one tip. I did not do it when I did it on the stream, but you should, is, I actually paint it not on the stream. You varnish it. You varnish it before you paint that stuff, and then it makes it easier to clean up mistakes. I still did a fine job on it, but it was like, I was a little agonizing, and it shouldn't be so hard. But that makes it so that you can do something a little bit more delicate like that, which is hard, and you can make mistakes and fix them pretty easily. I do not. Is there some sparkly interference? Okay, let me see. Well, the jerky movement, I don't know. Let's see. I don't know what that. Maybe 2 is. Yeah, 2 is an overlay. Let's see if that helps. 3 we need is that's the other stuff, but I think 2 might be the green screen, which we don't have. Is that any better? Let me know. But yeah, I think this type of paint job, you know, it takes me a couple of minutes, about maybe 5 minutes per mini. I do about 5 to 8 of them at a time. When I did the dinosaurs, I'm getting that wrong all the time. The dragons, I painted them, all of them at the same time, the grayscale stuff, and then I just went in and did the contrast paints on them. And you know, I did a little bit of tricks here. I gave this a little bit of, I used a metallic medium, and that has, it's a silver. Where is that at? Oh, here it is. There's several of them that have metallic mediums. Vallejo's the one that I got here. And I just used that to give it the iridescent quality on the scales. And you know, it looks good. So I had the 2 colors that I painted the body with, the bluish gray and this pink one, and I just put a little bit on the scales, and it gives it this interesting iridescent quality. All these things you kind of learn as you do them, and it's not very hard. Thin your paints and expect to paint layers. Yeah, I mean, you can absolutely do that all with zenithal highlighting, but I love the contrast paints because I get really great results in a very short time. And you know, it's another, I'm sure my abilities are helped by my capabilities as a standard painter, but I feel you just get better anyway. If you just get started on it. You know, if you feel uncomfortable painting something, first of all, I mentioned this the last time, if you are uncomfortable painting and you just get started, if you mess it up, you can clean them. There's easy ways to clean them. I use this stuff here. I showed it the last time. LA's totally awesome. I think I first saw Adam mention that on a Tabletop Minions video on YouTube. And it's $1 or something like that at the 99-cent store and places like that. And you just you soak it in this overnight, and then you got to clean it really, really good, and then you can just paint again. But additionally, I don't think it's a bad thing. I need to find, I keep mentioning I need to find it. They're here somewhere. This is like one of the first minis I painted in modern times. When I was young, I painted Revell models. This is not bad. I mean, it's not as complex. Now, I learned a lot about painting gems, and this is probably one of the first ones I painted a gem on, and it looks good. And this is going to be great. And I could always go back to this and paint more stuff on it if I wanted to improve it. A little bit later this was 20 years ago. No, not 20 years ago. This was, because it didn't come out 20 years ago. About 13 or 14 years ago, I painted this one. And this is me trying to paint like what they call the heavy metal style. And I can do it. This takes time. This took me probably a week, you know, in the evening, painting it after work. I mean, I loved it, and I really had a good time. I did a full set of these for Space Hulk, and then Scott wanted them for the BG library, and I said sure, and then he gave me another one. I started again. Now I didn't ever get further along on it. I need to. That's more minis I got to paint. Then I painted Quicksilver the last time on the stream. This was before I left, and he's cool. See, his hair is the white that I pre-primed it, you know, with the zenithal highlighting, and I just went with it. His skin looks pretty good. The funny thing for me on all these is they got angels with dirty faces. They got the like stubble, 5 o'clock shadow, because I don't put a lot of white in there on the face, but who cares? This looks great. You're going to see it from above. It looks naturally shadowed like it would be. That's what's really great about this. And what's really awesome is this is the same skin tone, not same skin tone, same paint. This is Gilman Flesh as this character here. And this one here. I generally paint them with a thin coat. Now I put an I put more of the contrast medium. That is basically the paint medium that they make these paints before they add pigments, and you thin it out with that, and it does a wonderful job. I mean, it really. At first I was frustrated because I didn't like the skin tone that this paint did. Now I was painting characters I didn't feel had dark skin, but and then I realized, oh, wait a second, I am not putting enough contrast medium in it. As soon as I did that, these all look they're just so fantastic looking, and they all look different. I love it. And you know, Kingpin is the same thing. And it looks great. I mean, you could do much, much better, but I feel this is going to be wonderful, like wonderful on the table, particularly because in this game, these are just movers. You just move them around on the board. They just make it fun to have them. And I love Big Child Creatives. They're the ones that are doing it. They design the miniatures and they paint them. And I think they're wonderful. I started painting oh yeah, mobs from Massive Darkness that I rarely ever use. That's a good thing. Like, you could go buy soldiers, you know, toy soldiers from the 99-cent store and start with something like that. But I feel all of us have some game in our collection that has minis that would probably benefit from painting them, and you should go for it. I mean, it is really not that big of a deal. It is, you know, it is a little bit of a challenge, but you'll get better, and you will find. I mean, some people would be bothered by it, of course. Like, you're not comfortable. You get too anxious, which I can sometimes get that way. I just walk away from it and come back to it. Yeah, his thrust things here. They're kind of got them like a pink color on this one. But I'm going to paint the War Machine, I guess this one is, because I think Iron Patriot is in the latest Kickstarter. Iron Patriot. But I'm going to paint War Machine. It's going to be different. I don't know exactly what I'll do. I'll show you what they did on Big Child. I'm using Big Child's paint jobs as a reference. I'm very happy on the latest ones. They actually show, the last two campaigns actually show the back of the miniature. I was having to do a lot of just guessing what it would probably be, and that's fine. But yeah, this has got some great shading stuff that they're doing to it. And you can see it's not that finely painted. I'm sure these folks are trying to just get through all of the minis, but this is zoomed up. I mean, you can see how tiny this is comparatively. You zoom up any miniature that you've painted, and you're going to see things like brushstrokes and stuff like that. And it's all just part of it. It's you doing the work, and if you can make it something enjoyable for you, I am certain it has helped with my relaxation. And I love doing it. I mean, I just love painting minis. For years now, I've done it in the modern times here for 20-some years. And then when I was young, I painted World War II stuff. My parents bought me like Breville kits, and you know, Star Wars. I have the Millennium Falcon and things like that that I love doing. I've always been way ridiculous. So I was way into Star Wars, and I collected like photos of the production that you can see. so you could see damage, and so I was damaging the Millennium Falcon. It's funny, my dad kind of wanted me to try to get into that industry, and your mind smooths out the rough edges. That is absolutely true. So he wanted me, I did not want to do that, but I had fun. I was like kit bashing and things like that. Turns out, I mean, I knew this, but at the time, my dad knew Richard Edlund. He had done an album cover prior to the Star Wars stuff for my dad for a band that my dad produced. I believe he produced them. And then he they mentioned, I'd completely forgotten about this. I was very little when that happened. He made an amp called the Pignose Amplifier. And that was a little teeny practice amplifier that they made. And some people actually use them to record. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, we watched that ILM documentary on Disney Plus, and they mentioned the Pignose. I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about all that. I mean, I knew it at the time, but my dad wanted me to introduce me to them because they were ILM was here in the Valley, over by the Van Nuys Airport, and I'm like, you know, I had a friend that actually ended up a few years after that I knew went into that industry, doing miniatures and stuff like that. And he I don't think he does it anymore. He did like stuff for, gosh, what was the studio he did it for? Great stuff though. I went to visit him several times. He was their studio was in Burbank, and he just did these. He did a movie called Robot Jocks, which was, goodness gracious, was that? I know who that was. The special effects company there, but yeah, I think Ron is now like in Florida. I think he went and worked for Disney for a while too. So, but you know, that's meticulous stuff that I'm just not built for. He did like perfect scale models of buildings. That was great. I mean, I studied architecture and design, and I loved making miniatures. You know, like little models of the project. I did that for several architects I worked for. I did that. And loved it. So I'm going to probably use the grayscale stuff that we. So I love one of my favorite paints in the system is this Basilicanum gray. I use it on. So I've been doing all the bases basically with gray. Sometimes with little bits of color, like Akoya's stuff here. I don't know if these are crystals or something, but they were green in the picture. I thought, oh, you know what, I'll do it. But then for this one, I haven't done any of the metallic on this one. I often do the cables with a little bit of the metallic medium, but I like the color to be on the model. So that's just been my methodology for this. Now I will do the thrusters, you know, with the color on this because those look cool. The Iron Man one, which I don't have out, was the first one I was like, oh, you know, this turned out good. So I wasn't too sweated about, you know, I'm like, it'll work out fine. I also have, so here you go. This is an example of like my painting method. I think I went too soon with the white on top of the gray. And so it's too gray. So what I need to do, now you can see the cape has like, there's some blue where I didn't get to it. I'm not gonna worry about that. I'll put the darker stuff on top of it and it'll wash it out, it'll smooth it out a little bit. But like, I think I need to come back on this one and actually give it some more highlights. I tried on his face, but I think the underpaint was a little too soon. You know, needed to dry a little bit longer. I tend to do these like the day of when I'm painting, if I'm going to be streaming in the evening, and I don't think that's enough time. You don't have to let them dry overnight, but I do want them to wait a little while. So this paint here works great as a gray. I love it in the varying tones. If you use, so this is the same stuff as on this one, and this one, right? One's much darker than the other. I put more of the dark stuff here than the thinned out stuff above, and it gives it gives it the changes, and then the zenithal highlighting also just helps make it, you know, more dimensional. The Pinocchio claymation, I don't know anybody that worked on that. So we know, we're friends with, gosh, my brain is tired here. Scott Woodard and his wife, Tamara Carlson Woodard. She works for I think she works for Legend, or whatever it is. That used to be Stan Winston's, maybe. She did puppets for, she does Grogu. She had to, I guess, when it was finally released, she was able, Scott took a picture of it and was very proud of his wife working on that and keeping her, keeping quiet about it, because that you couldn't talk about that one for sure. That was one of the greatest reveals ever. I watched it with Scott in Dallas in 2019 when we were getting ready for BGG Con, and Nikki was tired and had gone to bed, and when we watched it, which I generally wouldn't watch something like that without Nikki, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have to watch the show. And I think we stopped and didn't continue any further, but we were very excited about it. But yeah, I know some folks there. I have lots of friends. My brother he doesn't live in LA anymore, but he used to, he works in the music business, and he had tons of friends who did those kinds of things. Our friend Norman Cabrera is a effects sculptor, and he still does physical sculpts. He did the devil dogs, or whatever the heck they are, from Ghostbusters recently. That Ghostbusters Afterlife, and he worked on those. He's really talented. I know Norman more than I know some of the other folks. I actually don't know Tamara. I know Scott, excuse me. But I always, so my brother looks, we joke that we kind of look all alike, but Scott Woodard and Norman Cabrera look more like my brother than I do, but we all joke that we're all family. They all had the long hair and dark hair, but Norman has been working in the industry because he started working with Rick Baker. I think he met Rick prior. Oops, I need glasses, reading glasses. I think he met him prior to moving to Southern California, maybe, and started working with him right away. I think Norman's directing stuff now too, so that's cool. But yeah, the Valley is filled with effects houses and people that work on that stuff. Actually, Scott they moved to Portland so that his wife could work for Leica, which is more like the Pinocchio thing. I mean, those guys know Guillermo del Toro. Norman does for sure, because he's worked on stuff for them. And that's all awesome. It's just not. I don't know that I could. I'm not I'm definitely a crunch guy. I've had no problem with that. I've never done like weeks and weeks of crunch though. I don't think I could handle that. And I was studying. Well, what happened was when I was in high school, I was going to be an engineer. That was what I wanted to do. Hilariously, because I did not initially care for math. It wasn't that I hated it, but I just was not great. And then somehow I made the click, and I got good at doing that, and I ended up tutoring other kids, and then went to UCLA early for summer school to do advanced math stuff. And then as we were getting ready to graduate, not quite there, because I was, I was putting my applying to colleges. My dad's like, you're really creative. I don't think you should do that. And so I redirected. I thought about it, and I really did love the creative stuff. And so I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I think you're correct. And so I went into design, and I did that, and I enjoyed that stuff. But then I ended up getting into architecture, which kind of like is a happy medium between design and engineering. And so I studied architecture, and then worked in that field for a while, doing design mostly. I worked for a custom home builder, architect. And I remember when my first project that I did was being built. I was so excited, because it's like you don't really have any sense of scale, even though you kind of in your head do know what it is. But when I was seeing it going up, I was like, oh, it's a little smaller than I think it should be, but also it was amazing. And so I did that for probably 7 years or 8 years, or no, nearly 10 years. And then I sort of like did the same thing, but for a healthcare organization. And I was part of the facilities planning. So we didn't do as much design, but I worked for another architect, and they were doing stuff for this company. And then the people that worked at that company liked me and asked if I'd work for them. And I went and worked for them for a good number of years. And then when Scott, the goal was we wanted to do stuff with Scott, and when he felt it was time, I did my last, I let my boss know that I was going to move on, and she was very happy that I hung in there. Because we had, I ended up being responsible for some software that was ancient, was using Word 97, Windows 97, and Word 97, Access 97, not Windows 97. And it was, the guy that was responsible for it was retiring, and so he asked if I would do it because he knew I could handle it. And so I did that and stuck with it. It was supposed to be 2 years. They're like, it'll be 2 years. And I stuck with it for nearly 10 years, or 9 years. And when we finally got it transitioned to new software, I told my boss I was going to leave. And she was so happy that I hung in there. Because I just didn't want him to have to deal with another person coming on to do it. It just seemed like too much. But it's funny, I sort of sometimes miss the office. Like I would, when we were at BGG, the offices in last 2 weeks ago, I was like, oh, it would be fun to be here, But I like doing what I do because I like to kind of produce as well, right? That's what we're doing now, and with all the projects, I've got several people. I've got the Brothers Murph and Candace that are doing stuff, and I'm just helping, like putting together what we need to do, and I'm having fun assembling that stuff. We just haven't followed through on everything we'd like to do. There's always way more desire to do things than we have time. Plus, we're just trying to figure out the best way to make it so that it's at least financially self-sustains. We're trying. We did that top 10 video, which I'm just not a fan of doing them. It's very hard for me to be specific, like, oh, I like this. And so, but it was fun, and it was actually, we had a good time. We did one, goodness, probably 6 years ago, where we talked about the games that we liked from the modern era, sort of to 2007, with the beginning of, we were sort of new to it. Nikki and I didn't truly get into this stuff until 2002. And, but it was great having Mark, because Mark was on that one, and Mike, who actually is a game developer and has done that stuff, published games. And so it was, and Dave, it was great to have those guys talking about it, because they had just so much knowledge about it. I mean, I read Mark Johnson's stuff prior to meeting him. I can't remember. He's been doing his podcast for a long time. I think Scott was doing his first, though. And I loved it, it was like, and when I finally met Mark, it was great, because I loved his knowledge and all that stuff. And, we'd love him to be a part of the show more often, but he's just busy. Hey, we've got a raid. Oh no, it's a cheer. Hey, I'm gonna dance for it. Thanks, Jack. Thanks for the support. I guess that's not I think that's the same thing as a raid. We need to change our notifications, but thank you so much, Jack. Always more to do. It's true. I love I like to, we like figuring out stuff, and Candace is just great. She's a drummer. I played music too when I was younger with my brother, and then my school grades started to get bad. And so the choice was music or focus on school, and I chose to focus on school. I still have a couple guitars and things like that, but I was not my dad was in the music business too, so, there we go. There we go, Bagel Top Games. It is the same music. Thanks for joining us. I hope you guys had fun over there on, what was Bagel Top Games doing? There's my raid. It is the same sound, so we need to change that so I would know. I hope you guys are having fun. We're painting minis for Marvel United. The Kickstarter just ended yesterday, which I backed as usual. So they, at the final day, or not the final day, when they announced the last expansion, they had an all-in that was like, goodness, was it $340 or something like that? And I crazily did it, and then I backed the extra things so that it would match the rest of the game that I have already purchased, because I bought the cardboard locations, I bought the cardboard locations from a retailer here in the Valley. And as I had played it, so when the game came out, I paid for early shipping, and I was very excited about it. And then the word was it isn't that great. Now, I'm a fool, and I should have played the game, because I would have been enjoying it longer. And we know Eric Lang. When Eric comes to town, we hang out with him all the time. I should just talk to him about it. But he had told Scott, no, don't expect too much. It's a lighter game. It's like Eric says, it's really kind of his level of game right now. After doing stuff like Ankh and Blood Rage? And what is the Rising Sun, maybe? I think he burned himself on Ankh. And he's like, this is the proper level of game. And I really love it. I mean, it is really overproduced. It's an overproduced game. But I'm not even a Marvel, I mean, I like the movies, but I've never read the comics. That's Nikki and Scott, and appreciate that. But I like the movies. I like what they do with it for the most part. And I really love these. I love I think the game is really solid and fun. So I've really gotten in a big way, and I backed that campaign and waiting. It'll be a year before we get. I mean, I tweeted out a photo when the last batch showed up, and I'm like, is this my game collection now? Because it's just so much stuff. But Cthulhu DMD, huh? Thanks, Bageltop. This is just I'm just getting started. The deal is this is the contrast. I'm using contrast paints, but I painted in a zenithal highlight. So here's some other ones that I had worked on where I zenithal highlighted, then I put the color. This paint is semi-transparent. It can be quite transparent if you thin it down with contrast medium. And you get the shading that you put in the undercoating that comes through, and it helps basically it's kind of like a quick way to give your minis a good shaded look, and they look pretty legit. This one's crazy. This one but the face is ridiculous. I love it. I had such giant teeth on this. I'm like, well, I could do a really good job on these teeth. So I worked on that a lot, and I think it turned out really great. This is one where the purple and the orange and the yellow and the skin tone, I built them up over lots of coats of the paint. I just had thinned out versions. I think I missed the finger there. I had thinned out versions of the paint, one of the purples, and I just used the contrast medium and just built it up so that it would get it. And I was gonna do a little bit of darker, and I did some of it here, you can see. And I was gonna do that all over the place. I did some of it. I went in the edges and things like that to give it a little bit more of a line between the colors and stuff like that. But it's pretty simple, and they look really great. I mean, I love I've always used airbrushes for painting stuff on minis. I have my very first airbrush still that my parents gave me when I was a teenager. And I have many airbrushes just crazily because you don't need a ton of them. Hey, I just painted out of the pot. Too dark. Although I gotta say, maybe that wasn't too dark for that because that's been struggling. So yeah, I've thinned out the paint here so that it'll be a little bit less dark. It'll still build up in the cracks and crevices like you want it to do. And this is like the metallic type, more engineered kind of smooth surfaces don't necessarily work as well with the contrast paints. But I find that if you work with the paints thinned out and build up, you generally can do a pretty good job. Now, one thing I didn't do here is I didn't airbrush a bright spot on this. So I may try to do that with the paint, with white paint, and see what I get. And then what I'm going to do here after I've done the dark is I will thin this out a little bit more and just do the whole mini with the lighter color. And everything is, oh, they've got some red in there. That's interesting. So there's red in his mouth. There's little bits of red on his collar here. And there's red in the gun. Interesting. Let me see if there's some other photos of this. There you go. Yeah, okay. So I'll do some of that too. I'll try. I'll use a skinnier brush for that. I generally have been convinced that larger brushes are better, and I will have to agree because the point is pretty small. You can do quite a bit of detail, and these brushes, when they're this large, hold a lot more paint. Contrast paint is a thing. This is the one I'm using is the specific contrast paints from Citadel. They're not cheap. Let's see if I can. They started at this price and they have continued to be this price, $7.80. It's not cheap, but they have other brands. Vallejo has one called Express Paints, and is that right? Vallejo has Express Paints, and Army Painter is Speed Paints, and I think they have more paint, and they are they're just very similar. They all have pluses and minuses. I don't love all the colors on the Marvel United, on the Citadel stuff. I like them. I think they do a pretty good job, but some of them are... Now, I love Wildwood. That is the brown that I use a lot. It's very dark. I used it on the hair, on Shuri's hair. I believe I thinned it out a little bit. It's not focusing in there. But I thought it looked great. I used it on that one miniature that I showed you earlier. Where is he at? Here he is. The brown on the tree trunk body here. And this was I used this straight, so it was one coat, and I think it looks pretty great. I did buy the contrast medium. I realized that was going to be beneficial. I did this one here for Warhammer Quest Lost Relics game that we want to do on GameNight soon. This was the Wildwood first, and then I dry brushed some white on it, and then I used this Gore-Grunta fur, maybe thinned down a little bit, so it's a redder brown. And I think it does a great job on that tree trunk. I don't know if it looks great here on camera, but in person it looks really wonderful. And then this is the same color on the wings, just thinned out with the contrast medium. I think I might have gone for almost a completely undiluted or unthinned out with the contrast medium blue on the longer feathers. But there's a hair here I see somewhere. Maybe I'm imagining it. But yeah, they're pretty great, and I think that, any one of those systems would be worth it. And you can mix and match them. I've tried to buy, I almost bought some stuff the other day. Again, I don't have a ton of space. I really need to get through some of my other paints before I'm allowed to buy any more. I do have a full rack that I've assembled it, but I kind of feel like I don't. Hey, thanks for the Captain Metroidica. Thanks for the follow. I have this one here that is specifically designed for these paints from Vallejo and Army Painter. They fit really well. And I bought that in anticipation of buying those things, but I really don't have room for them. I've got so much stuff that I'm actually trying to get through other paints that I bought over the years, and I was like, you know what, I really need to focus on trying to use them. I'm using a lot of contrast paints, but I also am using I'm also using the standard acrylic paints. I mean, I have Coat d'Arms was the people that make this, used to make this HMG paints, used to make paints for, and they may be doing the paints for Citadel now. I don't know. I heard that at least at one point in time they might have gone back to them, because I really liked the paints when they were made in France, and then they switched to another source. So I think that's enough of that. Is there any dark stuff on the guns? There is. So let's do some of that before I thin it down. I try to work in those stages. Now, this guy doesn't have a face, really. It doesn't need a lot of detail. Usually I'll work on the face first. It may not always be the best way to do it, but for me, I feel that I can fix anything. Like, faces cannot be repaired. If I were to do it last, I mean, you can fix it all. People feel you can't fix the stuff with contrast paints. I just think if you put a little bit of gray that's as close as possible to what it's supposed to be on the stuff that you went over on, it'll work. But I have more control when I do it with the method I do, which is focus on the face first, then go out from there. Sometimes I'll do the collar, whatever, the shoulders and stuff ahead of that, because it might, of all of that, because I might be able to make a mess getting it on there. So the funny thing is, I thought I did a good job cleaning this Mini, and you can see there's tons of mold lines here. It's one of the disadvantages I feel of, hey, I've gotten it all over the gun. It's one of the disadvantages I feel of the these Marvel United Minis. You don't assemble them. And so I tend to feel they're kind of done. And because, I buy the Citadel stuff and it's completely unassembled. And I have to cut off the sprues and clean things up, and I spend more time on that, and I really should be doing the same on these. It's kind of hard. Now, these are the ones I'm painting now are from the original Series 1. So it was Marvel United, just the base thing. And those were a different kind of plastic. They now have a new style of plastic that's a little harder, like a stiffer plastic, and it is pretty good as far as if you wanted to clean them up or file things. It works better. I'm actually excited that they have the iron paint. There's a bunch of things. The Hulkbuster's in the new one. There's a Gladiator Hulk, which I guess is from Planet Hulk comic strip. And I guess Thor, right? Thor Ragnarok is comic book. Ragnarok, I got some on his head. So there's an example. I want that to be lighter. So what I will do is I will paint a little bit of gray on that spot to cover that up. If you varnish it, so if I wanted this to be white, it might be best to varnish it first and then go over this stuff, or varnish the stuff that you want to cover up. So I have this gray sear. It's not exactly the same. It matches another paint that they have. I don't know if they still, I'm sure they still make the gray sear in bottles, but it might have been one of the recommended primers for contrast paints, I think. And I bought that when I was buying this stuff with Scott, and I bought this gray sears to touch it up, but I didn't buy, I didn't bring that can home, because you can't carry cans in the air, and I did, on a plane, and I didn't want to send it. And I don't even know if Scott knows where it's at or was able to use it. So let's see here. We need a little bit of gray, probably, and it's not going to match, right? It's going to be slightly different, but if I get it the same tone, it should be okay. Now this again is not the best one to do it on because I'm going to be putting just a lighter version of the paint I'm painting on now, so but just a little bit of gray over it. I'm basically dabbing it on. It might not be dark enough, but it'll be fine. Like, that will be great, and you won't even see it at all. And that's just a basic, to me, it's not that hard. Now, if you're using, a lot of people use this stuff for all kinds of stuff, even more advanced painting. I am not, like somebody mentioned in the comments earlier, the crystal brush painter. That is not me. I know you don't read comics much, but if you're going to read one more, Planet Hulk would be a good one. Okay, I'll try to read that one. Traditional painting background. And Nikki, I wish she would do some more painting because she's got minis too. She's into the Malignants, I guess now is what they're called. She was into the Vampire Counts back in the day, and she's got a lot. Not a lot, but some. She's got like a Battle Force. Ugh, that's not the brush I wanted to use. She has a Battle Force that she needs to use to work on. I don't think they call them Battle Forces on the Age of Sigmar side of things. So I'm hoping like some of this stuff will. Oh, see, I didn't do his elbow here. Like they'll fill in too when you do the next color, the lighter version of this, and it'll be enough. So some of the blue plastic is showing through. I didn't really do that great of a job of covering it black. You know, you paint it as black as you can possibly get it, and then do the highlights on top of that, and you should be pretty good. So now I'm trying to decide whether I should paint that red before putting the other stuff. I probably should, because So the other thing you need to know is you definitely need to varnish these at the end. The paints are too thin, and you could have some troubles just in handling them, where it will it'll make them the paint come off. So definitely varnish. I am one that I varnish by hand. I've done some spray varnishing, tiny amount. From a long time ago, I was always afraid that I would get some fogging up, like the moisture. Now, we're not in a moist area, so I probably don't have anything to worry about, but I was worried about fogging messing up the paint job, so I always had no problem doing it with a brush, and I feel, you know, all of these are varnished. I don't know if you can see it, but it doesn't have any brush strokes. The varnishes are really solid, self-leveling, and I don't over apply it. I use these matte and ultra matte of AK Interactive's varnishes, and they're great. They're like $10 a bottle. I really should varnish some stuff and do that as a painting technique so that I could, you know, feel a little bit less likely to screw something up. Because, you know, nobody wants to mess it up. But again, you can always redo them. Like I said, I'm not going to redo these just because my paint skills have improved with the contrast paints. You know, because I was figuring it all out. I don't really know that much. I do watch videos I like. I love Vincent Venturell. I like Miniac and I like Ninjon. Vincent's way more productive though. He just does all kinds of stuff all the time, and he's great. So if you want to find out like a good, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty certain I watched a video, one of his videos on like the best metallics that really helped me out. I don't watch his stuff enough because I really like what he does, but his hobby cheating stuff is really worth it. Now this one I was using the other day and it had like a long hair. So, what red should I use? Should I use the ball red? I think I'm going to use this red. So this is a single pigment paint. And single pigment paints mean when you mix them, you're going to get more expected results. Meaning like you'll mix some colors that have lots of different pigment tones in them. For example, like this one here is a yellow. You can see it's pretty yellow here up above, but there's also a darker pigment in here. So if you're going to mix this, you might not get what you're expecting. Sometimes, you know, things will just turn brown. I have not had a lot of problem with that. But this is not a great, ultimately not a great contrast paint because it doesn't do as much of that settling. Now there's a lot of those. In each of the sets from the other manufacturers, they have some similar paints that will behave the same way. And it may just be partly the color, right? Some colors just may not be as good as to do that if it's darker. I mentioned the Wildwood being one that was very dark. The black is that way. What was the one? Oh, Ultramarines blue. I actually used it recently at Scott's place. I was fixing one of his, he has like some of those really fantastic resin sculpt. Gosh, that's not focusing. Those crazy well-painted resin sculpts, and something had gotten broken on one of them, so I was gluing it back together and fixing it. And there was a chip of the resin that had popped off, so I was able to conceal it with some paint. And I just used the contrast paints and it worked great. Thanks for the follow, Vokavimus. I'm painting the Marvel United stuff, if you haven't been. This is all stuff from the Marvel United first set. I have all the X-Men stuff to do as well, and as I was saying earlier, I backed all the new stuff, so I'm gonna have another. I want to try to be done. I'm giving myself a year to try to be done with all of these, so I can be ready for the next batch. I did paint. I showed the bird, but I did paint some of the minis for the Warhammer Quest. There's a small boxed Warhammer Quest game called Lost Relics that we're going to try to do on the show, and they had 5 really cool minis in the kit, maybe 6. I think it's 5. So I painted those using some of my this technique. I did use gold. Initially I was going to try to, it's getting on there. Initially I was going to try to do everything without any metallics, and I just realized, first of all, I'm never going to make anything look that great on a metallic, you know, with doing non-metallic metal, which is a technique of shading it. I'm okay at that, but on these minis, I tried. I've got Thanos here, and I was trying to do it on him, and I just couldn't get it to work. It just looked muddy to me, and this is not great, but he looks good. I mean, he really looks good. So for example, this is an earlier one, not as early, but my techniques have changed a bit. Like, I think I would have done a better job on his face. His eyes, he's got little beady eyes, so it's not quite, I don't know what that deal is there. Oh, I also did Loki, and that one was where I was trying to do what I was talking about, which was layers, building it up, and using colors instead of. So this one I used the metallic medium underneath, and And that's something I'm going to try to do. I have some primers from Stynylrez that are metallics, and I'm going to try to do one of those on one of the Iron Man. I'm going to see if I can get another base game and just do Iron Man again and try doing the same thing with shading, but then using one of the metallics or one of the darker metallics, then using this metallic medium that I had here as the highlight, because it's very, very white. Like, it's a very bright metallic silver kind of color. And see what that, just as an experiment, because I was thinking about it the other day. And Kid Loki looks, it's not Kid Loki. Loki looks pretty good. I mean, they're all kids with the chibis. I tried to do some shading on his face, and it's makes him look a little bit dirty, but I used darker, like some of this color here, because I think I used the yellow from Pro Acryl's transparent yellow on him, and then I used this color thinned out to give the shading on the horns and stuff like that, and it looks pretty cool. This works. I think I did this one after, maybe I did this one before Thanos, and Thor's not great either. He's another one that has, like, I used the metal, oh, here he is. He looks good, but he's not great. And I think my skills have improved since then, but it's fine. I mean, he looks great. He'll look great on the table. And this is like a single coat on this cape. It really looks good. This type of method is pretty great. Let's see. Yeah, I fixed the Batman. Oh, Scott was here. Yeah, the Batman, he had like his batarangs, or whatever they are, had gotten broken, and it fell off, because they are magnetically, the arms are, you can change them to different like poses, or not poses, accoutrement, like weapons or whatever, and it fell off, and so Scott was a little, he was bummed, so I was able to do a pretty decent job of touching it up. There was one little bit that had broken off that I could not resolve. So here I am doing a little bit of color of the gray on this on the very top. Now, I'm going to paint this up, which I shouldn't do necessarily, because the reality is it's going to settle when I paint the other color on top of it. So there's that red. Let me try to do the mouth. It's interesting. I'm not sure. Maybe he's glowing. His UI is glowing or something. Yeah, this brush is, I'm not sure what the story is. This was one I got from Nitro, which doesn't even exist anymore. I think they were a Swedish company, but I bought their stuff because they're the same manufacturer as this stuff, the coat to arms, which was also the GW, this was the GW manufacturer, and they did these as well for Nitro. I think they're Swedish. Yeah, they're Swedish. And I think they're gone. I would buy paints. Oh, I want to try that, and and then not paint, which is crazy. That's why I'm trying not to buy any paints that, other than what I really need, either to replace. That's the other thing about these bottles. These bottles are expensive from GW, but they last a long time. I've only bought one bottle of color again that I didn't. Well, I did spill it. So this one here, I spilled it at one point, and the paint didn't get messed up. But when I did, when I spilled this one, so I bought a new bottle of this, and then this Basilicanum Gray, that's the black. So there's the one here that I have. When it had a lot of white and gray at the bottom of this before I mixed it up. This one has barely anything. I think that's basically stuck on the bottom. So this doesn't work as a contrast paint anymore. It's more of like an ink now. So somehow when I spilled it, it got messed up. So the other ones have I've done 60 some minis now, and they last a long time. I don't think you have to sweat it too much. But if you can save a little bit of money, also don't go crazy. I don't know if they sell sets of these. I don't think they do. But buy what you need to see if it'll work. And if you want, just try the other ones. I mean, I really, like I said, I'm eager to try both the Army Painter and the Vallejo ones. The Vallejo ones are brand new. I think Army Painter actually has changed their formulation a little bit. They had a problem with what is called reactivation, and I don't, some people say it doesn't have, it's not a problem, and others say it is. And some people think it's actually kind of helpful. But I don't think I want to deal with that. Although I don't do a lot of painting on top. Ugh, I got red all over the place from my hand. Let's see if I can clean that up. I think I'm gonna have to touch that up with some gray. Let's just do it. Did I close that bottle up? I sure did. There's another thing about these bottles. They don't close easily. Like this one is not right. Now this is a thicker paint, but you see it's got a lot of paint in the hinge and stuff, and that's just not great. I think it works pretty great with the contrast paints, these lids, because you're going to paint directly out of the pot often. But it's not great. So I had a bit of a problem where I was painting Kingpin, and I dragged my purple brush on his shoulder, and I tried to patch it up with the paint, and I did, it's fine, it's not a big deal, but you can see right here I did an okay job. I think I was using not the primer. I can use the standard primer paint, it's a bottled paint, but I didn't, and I should have, because the white was just a little too warm from whatever I think it was this one. Bold titanium. That doesn't really look yellow, so maybe it got, you know, a warm. It might have gotten some color from the palette. I don't know. I use a wet palette. This one is from Redgrass. It's pretty good. This paper, they call it a membrane, is washable. You can rinse it and reuse it, which is pretty great. I'm always, you know, it's paper, I don't know, but I've always been concerned about waste. I'm going to sneeze here, I think. There we go. Still not great on that mouth. Rhodey, he's got a sloppy mouth. Planet Hulk, I need to read those. Yeah, this brush is not great. That little hair at the end is like preventing me from getting to the part that is wet. Is this a 2-0? Yeah. Double lot. I like the two double lots. I think I need to buy some more. Maybe from Monument. Monument has some good ones. I have one. I think Adam's kit had one in it. His favorite brushes. Yeah, it does have a double lot. I should just get that one out here. This one is a nice brush, but that one hair, I feel like it's like I've tried to trim them and stuff, and I've only messed the brush up. But I feel it really needs to be cleaned up here. Let's see what we can do. Maybe that did it. I mean, I painted with Sebastian, who's been on our show. They live in Germany. And he has brushes that literally have one bristle, you know, to do specific things. And this is one of those types of brushes right off the bat. Like his are worn out. he also doesn't throw out stuff very easily. Like, he is able to get like old bottles of paint working again, you know, just by using water and acrylic thinner. I use the stuff from Vallejo. They have pretty good airbrush thinner that works great. So if I'm like, sometimes I move stuff to some of this is an old Citadel paint that I moved to one of these dropper bottles that I bought on, I think, Amazon. And this paint's still great. I mean, this has got to be 20-some years old. And probably 25 years old at this point. And you put a little bit of that thinner in there, and some distilled water is what they recommend. And it does a pretty good job, and then you can use a dropper bottle. I like dropper bottles a little bit more than I'm not a big fan of the droppers on... It was interesting, I watched Livy, I think is her. She's great. And she was complaining about these bottles the same way I am. I like them, but they're messy. I feel these tops are messy. I have purchased their other tops. I have one of these bottles somewhere, has this one maybe? Yeah. This one is a standard. This is better. I just wish you could buy these with this lid instead of the others. But I've been putting it on the stuff that I use the most. So wow, does that not screw on? Sure does. I don't know, these might not be great either. It's funny, like, no, sort of the best ones are the stuff from Army Painter and Vallejo. These are okay. Let's see if this had a problem. I've had problems with these splitting. It is fine, but it's oozing out here. Probably need to shake that up a little bit. But yeah, I had somewhere, I think I'm over tightening it, and you probably don't need to be that tough with it. Okay, so there we go. Those are on there. Let's try some of this thinned out more. I don't need it. Well, let me see. What other red do they? Oh, they have all that red there. I really should try. I'll probably try to do that later. But let me put a little white on there. Actually, do a little bit of gray first. That I've closed up once again, and I'm opening it back up. I didn't use, I'm sorry I missed that, Stacy. I didn't use it on his gold. I ended up using standard, pretty much, I think this was the rich gold from Pro Acryl, which I really like here. I think that's what I ended up doing, but I did put a wash over it of this, and I think I like this stuff. I think it kind of didn't do a great job. His boots don't look quite right. I mean, you know, he's running around, they're getting dirty, it's fine. But yeah, I didn't use them on that. I basically I was not happy with what I did, and so I went with the gold. And I would like to shade that more, so I tried to do that on, I don't know if you can see it, I was trying to follow what they had done on the Big Child Creatives, and, you know, do like a shade of the brighter color, because this is theoretically the same color. Although I thinned down the gold a bit and used some of the shading from the underpaint on there, undercoat. And it's okay. I got a little bit on the top here. It's just, you know. But yeah, I used the metallics. I used the metallic here on his headband thing and on his sword. And so the reality is it doesn't matter, you know. You just do what you got. I mean, Akoya, I used it here. I used the gold. I used a different gold. This is one of the new golds I got from Pro Acryl. It is called, not light bronze. I think I used bright gold on it. That seems maybe right. There's one other color here. A white gold. I didn't use white gold. I think I used this one, thinned out. And then I used the this paint, you know, the strong tone, it's a shade over the whole thing, and then came back afterwards and then put a little bit more gold on top. And I feel that it works great. It's like, why make it harder on yourself? My goal is to try to do this stuff quickly. And she looks great. I mean, when I was putting it on, it looked like gold leaf, you know, and she looks really great now. So it's just whatever method it is to help you get it done quicker. And that was the thing. I was just spending too much time trying to make it work, and I was unhappy with the results, so I just said, forget it. And you know, Thanos is huge. There's a bunch of surface there to paint on that, and it just is, I really shouldn't have let myself do that. Because it's not worth it. You just can do what you can do on it, and don't sweat it. And if you get good at it, I mean, I would love to be good at doing, thanks Joe King, I would love to be, you know, faster and better, and I'm getting there, but I'm not, it's different, right? I'm not killing myself, and I don't want to stress too much. I just want to get better from just doing it. And I think I'm doing that. I think it's going okay. So there, I just did that in a dot of white. And what I'm going to do is then use another dot of white once that dries. Because that's one of the things, it gets chalky if you're not cautious. And I want to just be able to put a wash of the red over it before I give up here. I'm going to probably build it up. So I will start with a thinned out version of it and then go into the edges. I did something like that. Let's see if it was on here. I don't think so. On one of these, I built it up a little bit, and so that it came out a little bit better. There's a little bit of gray on there that should be, that red is poking through too close to the edge. I mean, that's one of the things you can do is you can, that's too messy. You can clean up your work by just a little bit of paint on top of it to, if your line work wasn't phenomenal, you know. I painted on these guys, the capes. I did this, you know, detail on the underside. Hey, look at this, I got something on there. So that, I've had stuff falling down on things over here. Ugh, that's bad. I'm gonna have to touch that up. So I probably touched that with a brush. But you know, this is hand, and then I went back and sharpened it up by using a paint close to the color. And it works fine. Boy, that is a bummer. I wish I had seen that. These are varnished, I believe now, so I could have probably fixed that if I had caught it before it dried. Because I'm pretty sure I know when that happened. I had such a crazy day. Like, I was dropping stuff the whole day. I was actually over here painting with, when Candace was here, working on some stuff. And I just the whole day, I just kept dropping things. I'm like, what is going on? And then others started to drop stuff, and then I'm like, uh-oh, this is catching. I'm going to put a little of the medium down on this and see if I can thin it out. This is a standard acrylic, but I'm going to thin it with the contrast medium. See how that goes. I could use the actual basilicon, the apothecary white, but again, it's kind of got a blue to it, a gray that I don't necessarily want. That was probably too much contrast medium. I did pull it out with my brush, which I tend not to do. So basically what I'm trying to do is sort of a glaze here that I'm building it up to be a little brighter so that when I put the red on there, it'll have it be more intense in the center of the I guess probably the arc reactor that probably has on there. Now when you put that on there, you got to wait a little longer. Now I need that white that I pulled out earlier because I want it to be very bright in the center. His little beady eyes. Thanos is evil. Scott has a lot of Thanos sculpts, though. He's got some really cool ones. Not a lot, several. He doesn't have that much room. So that's already kind of giving you that little bit of glow. And it's staged. I probably need a little bit more white around it. I'm putting a little bit of white in the contrast. Nope, too white. Too white. That's where I was using the gray, and I think the gray is probably the better choice. Now I'll probably let this dry. If I'm smart, I'll let this dry and then put the varnish over it. I mean, it's not done yet, but I will work on it a little bit here. Almost, again, I think I want to put the thinned out version of the Basilicanum gray on there very, very thinly. And give it a shade of the gray. I almost feel like it needs a little bit of blue in it, so I'll probably put a little blue. If I recall correctly, he was kind of... So I'll use this Griff Charger gray, which is a blue gray. Let me close these because they actually do pretty great as far as the contrast paints not drying too quickly. But this one here is just, it won't close. I can see there's some dry paint in there too. That's what's part of the problem. You know, and I ultimately barely use this. This is part of the problem with these lids. Okay, Griff Charger gray. As you can see, it's pretty blue. Ah, okay, Spider-Man's was fun. I did all those. I liked the, other than the Thor, I think Thor's in the main game though. Oh no, he might not have been. He might have been in the, I can't remember. No, he's out, so he's not. I like the Asgard one, and I really like the Sinister Six. I saw that that's available on Amazon, and that's why I guess they didn't put them in the Kickstarter. They did some, can't remember, I think they did the Spider, no, might have been the Sinister Six, I can't remember. There was a reason they added it to the campaign, on top of let's get more money from everybody. But Sinister Six was great. As a matter of fact, I mean, here's Mysterio, which, you know, I use the contrast paints kind of splotchiness to the advantage here to make his globe kind of swirly. He turned out great. Dr. Octopus is in here somewhere. Here's Sandman. Sandman turned out really neat. This, I think, was when I kind of made, it was still a little too dark with the undercoat, but I feel this is when I started to make a little bit of a change in my painting of these things. Let's see what else I got. Yeah, the Sinister Six was awesome. Vulture turned out really cool. I did him after I did another one of the winged ones, and I was very happy with how this one turned out. I really like this one. I think that was a great set. I don't think I think Green Goblin was in the Spider-Man one, but he turned out great. He might have been a Sinister Six. I can't remember. He turned out really great. I'm very happy with that one. This was really kind of the shift. I started to do a little bit more of the shading, you know, where I started with yellow and then progressively added more green to get it to where it is here. I used, because we didn't have a straight yellow at the time, this one here would probably be a good one to go with now. I used the transparent yellow from Pro-Acryl Monument, and then started that, and then progressively got some of the green in there. Let's see. I got more. Oh, here's Dr. Octopus. I thought he turned out. He was the first one I think I painted, and I was very happy. You know, I liked. It's not as intense as I was kind of hoping to do, but you know, I was painting the white in there and then putting that Iandin yellow on it, and it worked pretty good. He's neat. There's still two more at least. Oh, Electra. His is okay. I did do a trick here with where I painted the shading on here, where before I put the color on, I went with a gray to give that like a real extreme shade coming from, you know, it's kind of weird because this probably should have been light too. If you really think about it, one of the things you can do is use the undercoat to guide you so that you can get more natural shading. Electro. I don't remember who else is in there. There's more in here, but they're cool, and I think they're really fun. You know, I mean, they're a good set. That set that they have on Amazon, that's usually around $30. That's the base game and Spider-Man, Spider-Verse one, and the Doctor Strange mini is a great one. Great for that kind of money. Because I think the Spider-Man set is pretty expensive on its own. So to get it all mixed together, it was great. So I'm going to probably, since I'm putting this blue in here, I'm going to probably have to paint the red again on the, I was going to paint directly over it. I might try to paint around it. But I want it to be thinner. Let's see what it looks like on the paper. It's pretty blue now, so we'll see. Put a little bit more contrast medium on there. I did an orange down and then a silver over it to get a glowing cloud. Nice. Again, this is all, you know, just, it's so much fun. There's no reason to like stress out. And there's so many minis that, and you know, anybody that's playing with you is going to be excited to just have a painted mini to play it. So I feel, my friend Brian was saying that their problem with it is they love painting them, and every time I show him my stuff, he's like, dang it, and he wants to get back into doing it again. He and his daughter were doing them for a while. You know, they just felt that you couldn't tell the bad guys from the good guys, and I'm like, I was like, well, I kind of agree with you, but I also don't feel it's a problem. As long as you know your piece, and everybody tracks that, then somebody's going to know what the heck, where the bad guy's pawn is at. Oops, I'm painting it. You can't see it. So this is essentially just a thin wash of the blue gray over the existing. So I'll put some of that blue into the stuff I've already painted. Because I think he was in the movie at first, he was blue and silver kind of War Machine. Oops, not in focus. actually was very happy with the thrust stuff on MODOK. So I'm going to probably end up doing something similar here, except it's not as kind of dynamic as the one on the MODOK one. These are more billowy. One of the great things they do is they do OSL lighting, where it's, you know, object source lighting. So the thrust jets here would splash some of that color. So they have like a blue on one side of him that is, you know, I don't know exactly what that source is, but I know what the pinkish color is. The red is from the thrusters. And so that's something I think that would be great to get good at and move towards. It's especially probably better to do with traditional paints, but I'm pretty sure you could probably pull it off on this one if you're persistent. I've done a little bit of that. I did Doctor Strange. He has the glowing stuff on his hands, and I tried to do a little bit of it. I can show you that in a minute. And it's okay. It ends up getting sloppy. One of the things to do is if you were to airbrush, I actually haven't done this yet and I want to. I got close to buying some the other day. I was going to buy Silly Putty. One of the things you can do is you can cover your stuff up with Silly Putty so that you, when you paint, you can airbrush again and not get it on what you've already worked on. And I sort of want to do that where, yeah, it's on his mouth. Where the glow affects the previously painted stuff. And so I need to try it. I definitely should get some Silly Putty. I was nervous though, because what I'm really worried about right now is that the residue from the Silly Putty might become a problem with me painting. I've had issues like, so you can see here, I use this thing from Games Workshop Citadel that, yeah, red or blue around the base. Yeah, I thought about that. I actually decided against it. I may 3D print something. The problem is they're not standard size, but I thought about 3D printing a little ring that would snap on from above or below, you know, just maybe around there. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. But yeah, I was just nervous about it. Like, as I use rubber bands on this thing that hold these in place, and this becomes, I really should sand these before I paint, because the residue from the rubber is kind of a pain in the rear end. So I feel that would be good to just you know, if the Silly Putty does that, it would be harder to use. So I need to experiment on something before I go crazy with it. So one of the things when you're doing this, you have to be cautious to not work on stuff that you've done recently on this Mini. Like, I'm doing a lot of coverage here with this color. It starts to gel up when it dries, and when it gels up, you could mess up your work big time. So you got to be cautious. Now, I may come in here and do some lighter highlights or something like that to cover this, but I think this looks pretty good already. It helps bring down the gray and it puts it more in that. It's not really that blue. Now, I did paint around the red. I did not around his mouth, and it got inside on his mouth. He has eyes, wow, they don't seem to be glowing. But yeah, it would be good to do more airbrushing to do that stuff. But I'm also super paranoid about messing up my work too. So, you know, it's all how much you're willing to go for it and see what you can do. See, he's got a blue tone to him now. That's pretty good. It's not dry, it'll smooth out a little bit. as far as that shading, because you can see there's wet spots here. And that's where you run into issues. There's already something right there, and that I might have touched that. Has the gel there, or that could be a hair. Kind of looks like a hair. Yes, it is a hair. Let's get that off there. But that's kind of like what it looks like when you touch it and it's gelled. So now it has gelled up, and I messed it up a little bit because I was taking that hair off of there. But let's see if I can fix it. Oh no, that hair is really sticking around. That was the hair again. Now I can fix those types of things with the thinned out paint contrast. Wow, it really is just keeps going back and is absolutely a hair. It must be in the varnish. I mean in the paint undercoat. Keeps faking me out. Thanks. Thanks. Opal, I'm trying. He's cool. It's definitely neat. And I love, you know, I love that that's just a wash over the shading. It really is cool. I mean, I'm going to keep forever looking at this one because I think this really turned out great. And it really is. I just painted the stripes, painted the little creases, painted the ascot and the handkerchief and put some gold on there and the collar of his shirt. And that is it. And then the skin. And it looks fantastic. You know, it's all just the airbrush. The airbrush is such a great tool for doing this stuff. And it's, you know, it's a little intimidating. I could see how, the reality is if you go with what I'm doing here, you end up getting, you know, you just build it up. You do the black as best as you can. I almost feel it would be better if you held them with, like, I don't like to get all the paint on my hands, although I get plenty of it on there, but that's why I use the holder that I have. But if you had gloves that you just airbrushed and you know, held it upside down, because I'm trying to do that with that painting handle that they have. But you know, I'm also doing generally 3 or 4 or 5 more of them at the same time, and it just gets in the way, and you can't really get underneath. Where if you were to do each one of them by hand and just put it aside and then move to the next one, would probably be just as good. I've always, you know, I'm the guy that put the tape on the stick and painted a bunch of them at once. I mean, it's a very common technique, but I feel it's not as it's not as good. It's not as good as really getting in there to get the best kind of work on it. And one of the other things is having a good airbrush that's able to do a fine amount of, and this is like a skill that you could get better at. I am not that person, but where you just focus a little tiny bit of paint at a low level of flow, because I put a lot on his face here, but like if you had something, like if I was doing this with the airbrush to try to do this highlight here, you can do that with a tiny needled airbrush and slowly do it. Now, it would give you, the nice thing is you can then have a little bit of glow. Let's see here, I did something like that on this one. I was trying to paint one of these for Under Falling Skies, I think is the name of the game. It's the Czech Games editions. So you can see, like, I wanted it to have the red glowing on the edges. So, you know, I made sure that there was enough white when I did the undercoating, and then I put this red, and I just tried to get it a little bit so that it would like be reflecting, so you don't see it here, but then when you see it here, you get all that red. It's really cool. It's such a neat technique, and this is one where I went back afterwards and then sprayed the white, and then came in and did airbrush the red, and it turned out really awesome. I mean, it's cool. The blue, I tried to do the same thing. It wasn't quite as successful as the red. The red is just amazing because when you see it, it looks like, oh, there's a source and there's the light. These are actually a problem because they're soft. Like I put holes in it, I think. Sure, it doesn't seem like it, but there's uncured resin inside there. You kind of don't want it to be hollow. You just end up using a lot more resin when you do that, but it's also heavy, and I didn't want it to be heavy, but I kind of wish I had done that. But yeah, that's fun. On the YouTube stream, I wonder what's going on. Oh, I'm off on that screen, darn it. Yeah, I'm not sure. I did have a problem with well, people were having problems with the quality of the stream, but I also, there was a green screen thingy going on there. Well, I guess the chat isn't, now I'm going to watch the episode. There we go. Thanks, Steven. We had fun with that game. I really like, we've only ever played that game now 2 times, almost 2 times, I think. I'm not sure that we actually finished. Oh no, I think we did finish that game when we played it at Scott's. That was where we were like, we need to get this game and do it on the show, but it took us 2 months to get to show, filming. That was Flamecraft he was talking about. For my crippling Kickstarter addiction, Mads, good luck. You need to do it. It's definitely worth it. Yeah, Fisk is cool. It turned out neat. So I've got a little bit of the white there. I honestly feel it needs to be a little bit more. Let's see what I can do. It's definitely dry, although the paint is drying quickly here. Maybe I don't have enough water in the so on these wet palettes, you have a sponge underneath it that stays wet. So you want it to, and it keeps feeding water. So I think I was talking about it earlier. It's a membrane. You can re-rinse them. You can also just do a wet palette with, I think Adam Smasher just uses a piece of paper, folded paper towel, and then a piece of vellum or baking paper, which is basically vellum. Sometimes they have silicone in it, which you can't use, but because it won't work. And you just have that. You just keep that sponge hydrated, and water will pass through and keeps your paints active for a longer time. I mean, I've had some standard acrylics go for days. I'm able to come back and use it. Wow, it's not drying too quickly here on the inside of that. Belt there, the belt line. I don't know, Scott, do you want to jump on and see if you can see what's going on? Oh yeah, I'm seeing it there. I wonder if it's, let me go do one thing that we've done before. Hold on, let me try it. Except it would be, yeah, let me try it. It'll drop off, the screen will drop off for a minute, but I'm going to pull both of these boxes and let them reset. That sometimes has done it. It seems to have done it. So you're going to lose image. But let's see if that does it. It's weird, I don't know. I mean, we have the bandwidth, it shouldn't be a problem. So we have some boxes here that convert HDMI to SDI, and sometimes they have issues. Let's see. Hey, it looks bad there. So let me go see what happened there. Did it get better on this? Nope, still got a problem on the screen. Let me see if I can switch and go to something else. That's very weird. Oh, I see that. I feel that that's the boxes. Let me cut to this and just cut. See if I can figure out what's going on there. So that's the down cam, which is looking perfectly fine here. Maybe it's the outgoing one. It's funny, like let's see if I can fix this. Oh no, I can't make it any better. There we go. Let's try that. Okay. Stylish. It's okay. I want this stuff to work. It's a bummer. Plus, it's preventing me from painting on this too soon because everything's not dry. Let me know if that has improved things. Reset the camera? I can do that. Do we have the overlay? No, the overlay's not on there. That's good. Let me know what you think here, Scott. Let's see, I should be moving. I'm unplugged, so I won't hear any audio things. Good to go. Okay, that's weird. Wonder why that does that. The boxes seem to be the problem sometimes, though. I just don't get it. Ugh, that's wet. What's wet on his back? I should be using my paint handle. I don't know why I'm not. I almost should have borrowed Scott's. I wanted to try the... so there's a newer version of this handle. He has one of the old ones, one of these, and one of the new ones. Every time I've tried to buy one of these, they're sold out. The new versions of these. But I want to see how they work. They're a little bit more... They're much slenderer in the neck. This is much beefier. Now, I've got larger hands, so it's fine, but... Not doing it on camera. I might be doing a little bit too much, but that's okay. What I'm going to probably do is drop in a little bit of the dark stuff. And it's perfectly fine. Here's the deal. You want the red to be strong, so... But I also want it to be, you know, like, visible. And I still will probably do a little bit of, took it out there, darn it. Man, I'm not focusing in here. Wow, what's going on here? Something's distracting it. There we go. This music sounds to me like Vegas. So that's better, that's brighter. That'll probably work. And I really have to let it dry before I put the red on it. Can't get too carried away, but that looks pretty good. Now, I want to try to figure out what to do for this. I'll show you what they've got going on here. Now, this is not the same as you'll see here. That's one of the things about these campaigns is they're working from a 3D printed model. And it's close, but it's not the same. The blast from the thrusters is very pokey, you know, and this is much less pronounced, which is kind of a bummer. But what it probably comes down to is how the molds work. So, it's fine. Let's see here. We're lucky to have you. Thanks, Opal, for watching. So yeah, it's when you put this on here, right? They talk about reactivation. Well, this to me, these paints, unless they're really dry, they can reactivate. So, and this is a standard acrylic paint on the white. I did have a little bit of contrast medium in there, but and these don't reactivate. I don't feel they do. I still want to try I'm very eager to try the stuff from Army Painter. There's actually, they've said they've reformulated them and they have new colors coming, so I might just wait till they come out that. And I don't have the room anyway. I really do I have a full rack of like 100 paints here from a paint company a hobby company that's no longer in business that was up in Canada. And I really like their paints. I loved it all, but it's like, they're getting tired now, but I still would like to try to use them up before I go on. So that's pretty good. Let's see if I may, there's some on his boot there that spread when I was painting it. So I would like to cover that up a little bit before putting the color of the blast on there. Well, there's some spam coming in there on YouTube. I do not know how to deal with that. Ignore it. I know that that's another thing that Twitch does as well, is they have tools to prevent that. Like I think you can't go into the chat unless you follow the channel. That's one of the things. Don't put it in that color, it's got a lot of red in there. So I have two sources of water here, one that's really to clean the brushes and one to add water. And I try to keep them, you know, no color in the one that I'm using to give me, to thin things. Okay. Now the one thing I could do on that is, instead of making it very white, right? Making that whole area very white and then putting the layers of the red on top of that. I'm really eager. I want to paint that so badly. I need to relax for a few. Do I have anything to paint on? I do. So let's paint his base. He looks cool. I followed, like, there were two different photographs for this miniature, or more than two, but two like versions of the paint job where one was blue and one was green. I ended up going with the green. I think he's kind of blue. But I mean, I did the blue for the, I think I used this same Griff Charger gray on the bodysuit here to give him a kind of a blue thing with the green. I thought that was cool. You can kick people out? We should do that. I don't have it. I'm not even signed in. I'm looking at my feed here on my phone, and welcome to the live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Okay. I need to get signed in. I couldn't. We've changed password managers because of all the crap with LastPass, and it's just turned into a headache. I like the new one, but I have to log in so many times during the day, and it really is frustrating. I do not understand what's going on with it. Okay, I need black. So this one I use coal black, and then I'll paint it on there, let it dry, and then I'll do a coat with, this is something Adam on Tabletop Meetings showed. And then you do the contrast over it, and it actually really contrasts black over it. There's two kinds of black now. I haven't tried the other one, but it does a pretty good job of smoothing it all out so it looks good. And then I varnish it on top of that as well, so it's not really that much. But let's see here. And the messiness I was talking about with these bottles and stuff, the real issue is it's not that big of a deal. So what I do is I close it, I pour some out, I close it, it squirts a little bit more out, and then I just put that on the palette, and then I'll wipe it. The reason why I don't like it building up is it just makes it so that I can't control the paint, like coming out of the bottle. And so that's where this is a little frustrating. But I do like their paints a lot. I will probably be using more of their stuff as I go along, you know, as I'm buying more paints beyond the contrast paints. I know a lot of people like Vallejo. I think they're pretty good. I've used them some. I didn't love their white, and a lot of people like it. As a matter of fact, I mean, I don't even love the white from Monument, Pro Acryl. It's okay. Yeah, two-step verification. Well, there's all that too. Two-step verification and our passwords, you know, like we changed a bunch of passwords. But yeah, it's a bummer. They definitely need to figure out a way to smooth it out for logins and protect yourself, because, so you'll see here, this is, hey, it's actually okay. I was pointing it out earlier. I should have sanded it, but it seems to be okay. The one thing I don't do is I do clean them before I paint them. I will use a toothbrush and clean the Mini to get any of the mold release stuff that they have, you know, like they put inside when they're injection molding. So you don't want that on the miniature because it makes it hard to paint it. You know, too much crap on it. So I'll do all that and then I let them dry and then I airbrush them. If I didn't give them enough time to dry, I'll just use the airbrush to spray air out. That'll do a pretty good job. Now Opal's on the YouTubes. I actually like to paint this faster, but I've done a mess here. Because if you aren't careful, you end up touching. I like to get to this side before it's dried almost completely. But you don't want to tear the paint, then you get the, you know, the blobs and crud. I'm usually working really fast when I do these. I'm really actually enjoying these inexpensive brushes. They're, what is the brand called? I'll tell you in a moment. But they were 150 brushes or something like that for about $45. And they worked out really great. Let's see here. Royal and Langnickel or something like that. I've actually bought their brushes before in packs, like a couple brushes. But these are like educator ones or something like that, but they've been great. Golden Taklon. The points are really good on them. 144 brushes. There's 24 of each size. It's from like 1 to 6 or something like that. Really great. They're, I mean, you know, I have expensive brushes, but these have been fantastic and I don't worry about them. And I actually like the clear handles, so the paint won't crack. Scott had one that it painted and it cracked it, and then the whole thing just shattered. Like there's no paint on the paintbrush anymore. Like what the heck happened? I think I cleaned it all off when I was painting I painted his Nebula when we had time, and we were house sitting, and so I just broke off all the rest of the paint. I should paint it back up. But it's just crazy. It's so weird that that would happen. So yeah, he looks good. I painted white on the eyebrows. I did okay on the teeth. The eyes turned out pretty good. He doesn't look cross-eyed. He looks intense. Oh, do these paint brushes? I will send them to you. It's really great. And they were pretty quickly shipped to me, and I'm sure other manufacturers, I mean other sellers. This was somebody like in Indiana, which was great. But it's tremendous, a tremendous amount of brushes, and you know, I have all of them out. I have one of every size out. Hey, is it 8? Goodness gracious, I went late today. Yeah, that's my mom, to call my mom. She doesn't expect me to call when I'm streaming, but I probably should end it here. Let's see. Let's look at War Machine. Man, I really want to paint that red. I am going to do it. I'm going to be bold and do it. Let me put a little bit of red on the palette and do it that way. So they also included one of each of the colors, so it would make a group of 25. They're not the same. I thought it was a handle for the brushes. I have no idea. Maybe it's for a smaller type brush, but they didn't. They had one in every one of them. I'm like, okay, well, I've been using them as a paint to get it out of the bottle and put it on the palette. It's been great. Okay. So I'm only going to do a little bit of the gray, of the, excuse me, of the contrast medium, because I only need to do, I want it to be on the center. I know, oh, you know, I remember what I did here. So on this one, before I painted it red, I did a wash of this red, but thinned out. Then I put the red on top of that and made the little reflection lines or whatever on there. So that's essentially what I'm going to do here. Now, this is easier than what I'm going to do here because this tends to get messy. But I want it to be lighter on that other center. I still want it to be red, but I want it to be lighter. And the good thing about using the contrast medium instead of using white to thin your paints to change the intensity of the red or whatever is it doesn't really change the color. I mean, it's not as intense, but it's still red. It's not focusing. I think something I've got shiny is distracting it from focusing. Anyway, so and then I'll probably come back in and do a little bit of bright spot again on it. Although maybe this will do it here. Just pulling some of the paint off of the finish there. Yeah, it's leaving a little bit of a drop here. Boy, these I think are distracting it. But yeah, I have one of each of the colors out of the different sizes, and they're all pretty good. There's a few that are not wonderful in the set. Like, you'll have 24 of them, and one or two are not perfect, but who cares? These come out to 37 cents a piece. I think is what it was, 37 or 38 cents a piece. And I just, I've overspent on brushes for decades. There we go. So I'll let that dry. Probably should just hold it to let it dry so it doesn't seep back down on that. And then put a little bit more of the intense red on the edges to make that work a little bit. I think it's going to do it. I'm too afraid to touch anything while that is drying. Never have to worry about finding clean brush. I still clean the brushes though, for sure. I want them to last as long as they possibly can, but the thing is I'm not sweating it developing a hook. So far, the one, I've used this orange one quite a bit. There's no hook. Maybe they're starting to get a bit of a hook here. But I use brush cleaner. I was at Scott's and I used his. I've had these for ages. They're now in a bigger diameter, shallower container, which is pretty great. I have another one here, so I'm a long way from getting the new style ones. But this one's much newer than this one was. I bet you I had this one since, probably since the 80s. I mean, look, there's a barcode on it. This one does not have a barcode, and this one does. So there you go. That tells you. It's still General Pencil at that point in time. I don't know if it still is. I like this one, these cleaners, but you can see I'm almost done with this one. But I use it, and then I leave it in the brush when I'm done, a little bit of it to help condition and reshape the brush between uses, and it does a good job. But yeah, these come to a great point, and I'll probably never need brushes for a long time. I mean, I still have some great Sable ones. I have the Winsor Newton 7s, Series 7s that I've been using since forever. I think my old art teacher in high school was the one that got me on those. And they're great. But, I buy these on eBay. and they're pretty nice, but you know, they're $2. I don't, instead of spending that, I don't know what I'm doing here, but it's not focusing as fast as it normally is. But you can see there's a hook. Like the way I paint, and this has got the conditioner in it, but it just didn't, you know, the cleaner in it. But it didn't completely go out. Let's see here when it's wet. I mean, it didn't go away, the hook. Now, I can use this for other stuff. It's not that big of a deal, but I like to have them. The nice thing is to be able to paint the details. See, this is not coming to a point. The bristles are just getting beat up, so I'll use it for something else. But I was noticing, like, I had these go bad pretty quickly a couple times, and I was like, well, this is a bummer, and I was going to order more, and then I just started to research. I think the golden taklons are pretty nice. Anyway, these other ones, the ones from Monument, they're great. I think this cost $20 though, or $21 or something like that, for 3 brushes. You know, they're good. I've already used one of these. I think I used the 2. I needed one that size specifically before I got these other brushes, and I was like, oh, this is great. And these are synthetic too. They use a different kind of bristle, not the same exact. I mean, you know, they're probably almost entirely the same. Now, these are actually sable. Sable is interesting. They are a little bit more forgiving, and the hook doesn't develop as quickly, but you know, when I'm painting very tiny minis, and I'm poking that brush into the stuff on the miniature, that's just what causes the hooking. And you know, sometimes the hook is actually beneficial, but I would really only rather have just one brush that has a hook. But eventually all of them will. But you can use them for dry brushes, or, you know, just putting on, you don't have to worry about like how good the brush is to put on your base coat if you're doing like the black before doing that. Okay, so that's dry on the bottom. Let's do that one little bit, and then I better probably go. So I use, let's get this closed. These are not closing that well. The Black Templar Black Templar is the name of the color. It's a black. But you do one more coat on top of this, and you can see it's got a little bit of, you can see where my brush, like I probably started and finished here, and so it's got different shades of, like different levels of matte. Also, it looks like the blue kind of got through here where it was, the rubber band was holding it when it primed it. I gotta get the studio together too, because Candace will be here tomorrow morning. She's leaving for 2 weeks. Her significant other's 40th birthday was last month, and so they're going to Thailand for 2 weeks, which is awesome. I've never been to, I went to Japan in 2018, which was amazing. And I'd love to go see more. We're talking about visiting a friend. They have a place in, goodness, where do they have a place? They have a place in, I'm not remembering. And they're like, they wanted to try, they were hoping to spend the winter months there. You know, he's a board game guy. Hey, Snooze. And we talked about going, and then they weren't going to go. So you know, we had credits because we were supposed to go to Japan in 2020. We were going to go to Tokyo Game Market and the BGG cruise, and none of that happened. So we had some credit, but it was, you know, it's these airlines, they definitely don't want you to use the credit. They make it hard. You have to like travel by a certain time, and you know, book it and get it spent before the time is up. And we just, you know, really the best time for Nikki and I to travel, if we're going to do anything besides conventions, is January or February, maybe March. And then after that, it's busy. You know, we've got a busy year ahead. We'll be traveling generally once a month or so, and you just can't do I don't really want to travel more than once a month, honest with you. Because I really have to get ahead of myself, you know, everything in order. And you can see I didn't have that episode out, and I should have been prepared for that, but it happens. There we go. That's pretty good. Cool. I didn't say the name, but I think I showed it. It was, yeah, Royal and Langnickel. I think I bought their brushes at Hobby Lobby, but Nikki won't let me go there anymore. And I agree with her. They're not nice people, ultimately. So we, and it was a good brush. I think I bought 2 brushes. They also have good brushes too. Hobby Lobby has some nice, let me see if I have it sitting here. I don't think it is though. I bought one, like, oh, that was the last time we went, and Nikki needed something, and so then she made the decision never to go again. It was this one here. This is from their brand, Master's Touch. But this was, I've used it once or twice as well. And that dark end, I mean, I think it's Golden Taklon essentially, that they've dyed the tips of the brush to make it look like a sable or something. But it was a good brush, and it's a 3. And I would like to get more of them, but I'm not going to go there anymore. Which is fine. Okay, let me look at War Machine. I keep wanting to call him Warmonger, and that is not who he is. But let's look at his mini. Oh, he is here. So that red's pretty good. It's not very strong. I'll put a little bit more on the edges and build it up, but I'm going to try to leave that white so it looks very intense there. Part of what it would be, this is why I say if you were to paint the whole thing white inside there and then just do the red around it, you could make that red more intense and brighter if you went the route where it was just mostly white in there and you continue, and you continued to build up the red so it would be more intensely red. Anyway, let me switch to the other camera. I'll be back on Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then we will be streaming Game Night on Thursday next week, so this time next week. If you can join us, that would be great. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We will be filming again this weekend, as I was saying, so hopefully that'll go well. And I hope everybody has a good time. Now we're going to try to raid somebody. Let's see what we got going. It's probably Bonzinator. Supports hooking. Okay, here we go. Let's see. So we have their Bonzinator. She's going, wow, she's got 40-some people. Let's go to Bonzinator. Everybody say hello for me. If you want to join in the raid, please go ahead and click to go through. We'll be done here in a few minutes. I think I have to click it one more time. But everybody, take care, have a great weekend, and hope you have some fun, and try to do some models, paint some minis. See you guys later. Bye-bye.